right now? All right. Good evening, everyone. Hi. We are now going to get started. Folks can take your seats. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to see you all here this evening at PS 376. I want to thank Principal Perez Hernandez for generously allowing us to use the auditorium this evening, and also for all of the community organizations that have come together to support this event and provide information to you all, to constituents, about services and programs that are available to you. To name a few, we have CORE, Communities Resist, the New York City Tenant Support Unit, Live on New York, NYC Blood Center, North Brooklyn DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, Make the Road New York, the CCRB, the Civilian Complaint Review Board, Office of the Community Liaison, Safe Horizon, and St. Nick's Alliance. And if I'm forgetting anyone, you let me know. El Puente is also here. But after I speak to you all a bit and talk to you about the work that I have been doing in Albany this year, talk more about state policy, and we have some Q&A. We will have some of those community groups come and present about the resources available to you all and to our district. Can everyone hear me? You can hear me. Great. Excellent. Thank you, Mark, for generously offering your talents, recording the town hall, live streaming it, and taking care of the sound for us. I am Senator Salazar. You can call me Julia or Julia or Senator if you wish. Thank you. I also, before I just launch into talking about policy, I want to acknowledge our Assemblywoman, Maritza Davila, my colleague in government. Would you like to come up and say a few words? Yes, welcome.
Thank you, Senator, for allowing me to come on stage. This is actually her event, and I called and I asked her if I can join her. But I just want to say that our senator does a great job in Albany. She is a true champion. She's a fighter, and we work together. All of us work together in this community. I think it's a united front, and when you work together, it doesn't matter what you represent. We are working for you, for the people of this community. So I want to thank you for being here. I'm not going to take much of your time. I'm going to let her do her thing. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Davila. I also want to acknowledge our Chair of Community Board 4, as well as our District Manager of Community Board 4. That's Robert Camacho. Say hello. Celeste Leon. Thank you so much. Of course, we are here in Bushwick, but our district, I call it the Gray 18th District, State Senate District 18, includes parts of Williamsburg, parts of Ridgewood, Cypress Hills, East New York, and all of Bushwick in the State Senate. So what that means is I really work the most in terms of with my assembly colleagues. I work the most with Maritza Davila because our districts, or my district overlaps completely with hers, with the 53rd. And it really is, it makes all the difference to have local elected officials as partners who you can collaborate with when there are issues that are more appropriate for our council members to address or for our congresswoman. Important to note, as though I know that many of you do know this, but I am a state senator. I'm not a U.S. senator. I mention this because sometimes when I see people in the community, they ask me, how's Washington? And I say, I don't know. You should ask Representative Velasquez. But if you want to know about Albany, I can talk to you about that. I go to our state capitol. I'm one of 63 state senators across the state representing our respective geographic districts, and mine is in North and East Brooklyn, and a little bit of Queens and Ridgewood. I was elected in 2018, so this is my 6th year in the state Senate. It goes by very fast. And again, I will speak more, at least in this portion, about state policy, sort of reporting back on what we do in Albany. Our legislative session is from January to June, at least that's the regular session. Sometimes they call us back for special sessions, and that's what allows me to be here tonight and to spend time with you all in the district for the most part for the rest of the other half of the year, this half of the year, when we are not in Albany all the time. But it's important for you to know what we are actually doing in Albany. I serve on committees in the state Senate. I chair the Committee on Crime Victims, Crime, and Correction, meaning focused on both supporting crime victims and survivors, connecting to resources, but also providing accountability and oversight to our state correction system, to state prisons, and the incarcerated individuals, tens of thousands of people who are incarcerated across the state. So that's the committee that I chair. I also serve on the Health Committee, the Finance Committee, the Housing Committee, Women's Issues Committee, and the Committee on Mental Health, as well as the Task Force on State Native American Relations. Should go through the slides. Thank you. So, a quick report back on legislation this year. Introduced 92 bills. Some of them were introduced last year, but in this term, 2023 to 2024, introduced 92 bills. I won't talk about all of them. We don't have that kind of time, but if you want to talk about any of them, I would be thrilled to. That's what I love to do most. 24 Salazar bills that I introduced passed the Senate this year in 2024. And 6 of those bills actually passed both houses, the Senate and the Assembly. And that means that those bills are on their way to hopefully becoming law if and when the governor signs the bills. Thank you. This is just really a sample based on what I know folks in our district care about. These are bills that each one of these we have collaborated with constituents, whether it was to draft the bills in the first place or in advocating for them. They speak to really specific issues that don't only impact our communities, but really do impact our people in North Brooklyn. One is the creating a Ride Clean rebate program. This is a bill that I've carried for years. It directs NYSERDA to create a program to provide a rebate to individuals who purchase e-bikes and e-scooters legally. We know that there have been safety issues with e-bikes and e-scooters in the city, and we have also been working to address that through other legislation at the state level and locally as well. But overall, it's actually really important for people to have access to these modes of transportation that are clean, that don't burn fossil fuels, that are more accessible to people. And this bill would really be about making it easier for people to access these forms of transportation and use them. One bill that I'm really passionate about we call it Ending Toxic Home Flipping. The End Toxic Home Flipping Act, previously called it the Community Protection Act. This bill would address a serious problem that we see in our communities, especially in Cypress Hills, East New York, but also in Bushwick, where predatory entities investors who, and we're talking about folks who don't live here the vast majority of the time, we know that is true, who come into a neighborhood, they see that there are cash poor homeowners or people who are struggling, maybe who are being threatened with foreclosure, or they're behind on their bills, and they're struggling, and they go to these homeowners and they offer them cash to sell their homes, right? Whether you want to sell your home or not. Oftentimes this looks like harassment, going to people's homes, who are not trying to sell, and soliciting them and pressuring them to sell their property for less than it is worth. And then, and this is, I think, perhaps the most harmful aspect of this, the investor purchases the home for what's a very good deal for them, not usually a very good deal for the homeowner, and then they flip it. So in some short period of time, often just within a few months, they might make some aesthetic repairs, they might make real repairs, but regardless, the flipper, the investor, then sells the home again within a few months. They might even sell it to another investor, but they sell it for a huge profit. And we have a lot of data to demonstrate this. What we believe is that homes in our community should be for people to live in. What a concept. They should be for families, and we want to make sure that people can continue to afford to live here. Tenants, homeowners, all of us should be able to continue to live in our communities, but because of predatory speculation and house flipping, that is increasingly inaccessible to people. A lot of young people say, I cannot even imagine, they'll say, I grew up here and I can't even imagine being able to ever afford a home here. And that's really sad, and it shouldn't be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. That's why we have this legislation that seeks to curb this behavior of predatory house flipping and bring some stability and calm to the market, because it doesn't even just affect the people who are pressured into selling their homes, the tenants who may be displaced, for those who have tenants in their homes, but it also affects people in the homes around them when their property taxes, because we don't have a very equitable property tax system, and folks in our district know that from experience, their property taxes then go up, and there's even more pressure on them to either sell their properties or to be displaced and to move. So that legislation is very important to me. We work with the Center for Community Advancement and CHLDC especially on that. And I'm hoping that we can finally see movement on it in the new session. One bill that we passed this year, also for those of you, I will definitely talk a lot about tenants' rights. Those of you who know me know that I'm very passionate about that, and I'm a renter myself. But we did also take action to try to protect homeowners. This one might sound simple, but it's very important for people who are potentially facing foreclosure. A bill of my own that passed this year. Often, when someone is potentially facing foreclosure, the lender, the bank, will send them a legally required notice. The law requires them to send it. But with that notice, they'll send a bunch of other information and documents and materials. So much so that it looks like junk mail. What do you do with junk mail? You throw it in the trash. You probably don't even read it. That is really dangerous for somebody who needs to know their rights and may be facing foreclosure. So we passed this bill that says, when you send that legally required notice, you do not send other stuff. You send the legally required notice so that it is unambiguous and the homeowner knows. They know that they need to seek help, and they know what they're up against, and that they're facing foreclosure, because it is not good at all to not know your rights and not know that that's happening. Another issue that we hear a lot about and experience in our district is sometimes inequity in healthcare, in the services and care that people receive. There's racial bias, there's gender bias. A bill that I've carried for years that passed the Senate this year is requiring anti-bias training for every medical resident, person who is receiving medical training in the state of New York, to try to prevent that bias, which often people are not even aware that they have until they receive training and education about it, and then they can change those habits and provide better care particularly for Black and brown New Yorkers and Black and brown women. Basement apartment legalization, last thing I'll talk about on this slide. So we probably all know somebody who lives in or has lived in a basement apartment at some point. It can be a source of affordable housing for folks, and that is wonderful. However, many of the basement apartments in our district and in New York City are not up to code, to say the least. They're not really safe or legal dwellings. This is an especially urgent issue when we're seeing severe weather events and flooding. We've tragically even lost some of our neighbors as a result of this, and so it's a really pressing issue in our district. We provided funding in the state budget this year for this basement legalization pilot to support property owners who don't necessarily, it can be very expensive, extremely expensive, to make these basement apartments legal dwellings and safe for somebody to live in. And so a lot of people don't do it, and this pattern continues. So in the budget this year, we allocated funding for the first ever citywide basement legalization pilot. However, it's not quite citywide. The governor decided in the budget to include certain community districts, but not all. So Community District 4 is included. That's great here in Bushwick. However, Brooklyn Community District 5, or Community Board 5, was excluded. This is ridiculous and really outrageous that they were excluded from the budget, because actually Community District 5 in Cypress Hills and East New York demonstrated in the first place to the state that we needed state action in order to bring these apartments safely up to code and make them habitable. So it was very ironic that CB5 was excluded. I took action immediately with my colleagues to introduce a bill to support CB5 and actually other excluded community districts to be able to participate in this pilot program. So that is still pending, but it's a really high priority for us here. Next slide. Thank you, Sonia. Awesome. So I'll go through these a little bit more quickly. One that I want to talk about that passed the Senate this year is called the CARE Act. So I mentioned that I chair the Crime Victims Crime and Correction Committee. What that actually means in terms of the work that I do and my office does is, in addition to serving about 300,000 constituents in this Senate district, we also are responsive to the needs of constituents who are incarcerated in state correctional facilities, and additionally the people who work in those facilities. The conditions can be really bad, and sometimes are even a humanitarian crisis. There are women's prisons in the state. There's 3, for those who don't know, and one is Bedford Hills Correctional Facility, where there sometimes are individuals who are incarcerated while they're pregnant, or when they're in the postpartum period. That is obviously a really vulnerable position to be in, and we want to make sure that people who are pregnant or postpartum while incarcerated, that they have the best possible care, and also that their babies have the best possible care, and that ideally they're able to bond with and spend time with their newborn for as long as possible. It's really important for the child's health and development at that early point in their life. So we passed the CARE Act, a bill that I introduced to do just that. A bill that I also carry is called Fair and Timely Parole. It has a partner bill called Elder Parole, which Assemblymember Davila is the champion of, the sponsor of in the Assembly. Fair and Timely Parole would really just make our parole system do what people already think it does, give people a fair shot after they have already, if they're in front of the parole board at all, that means that they have already served their minimum sentence, and they deserve to have the board actually fairly evaluate them, and not deny people parole based on things that are totally beyond their control, and try to address discrimination and lack of transparency in our parole system. Also, in terms of addressing sexual violence, sadly, there is sexual violence in the world in general, and that's something that we care about in supporting victims and survivors. But as you might imagine, there is an especially high rate of this kind of violence in jails and prisons. So, and it persists in part because the system in DOCS, our state prison agency, for addressing this, it not only does it lack transparency, but it just isn't really working. In the vast majority of cases, no action is taken on behalf of the victim. It is really sad and harmful. So I carry a bill that passed the Senate again this year to ensure that the Inspector General, who's truly an independent body in New York State, that they are handling those sexual violence complaints and investigations rather than someone who maybe is compromised and is not truly independent. It really is important for victims and survivors of sexual violence who are incarcerated or were previously. Victim compensation, this is always really important. Victim compensation is important, but if a crime victim is only eligible for, to have like one therapy session covered, for example, after experiencing something traumatic, or they're only eligible for, a paltry amount of compensation, it really is not making a difference in their life. It is not helping the person heal and recover. It is not empowering them. We passed this victim compensation bill this year to increase the amount that victims and survivors can apply and receive in compensation after being the victim of a crime, and also the scope of different awards that somebody can be eligible for. This also is about restorative justice and helping people heal and move on after they've experienced something traumatic. And lastly, very quickly, we have a bill called Dignity Not Detention. This is very important to communities in Brooklyn and our district. And something that's important for folks to understand, there are many people who they've not committed a crime, they haven't violated state law, they haven't hurt anybody, and yet they are held solely because of their immigration status. And because of ICE enforcement, they are held in state or in local correctional facilities in New York, typically outside of New York City, but they're held in jails while they await, unfortunately, possible deportation. It doesn't have to be like that. It shouldn't be that way. And so that is why we have this bill that would say, no, in New York, we don't do that. Other states might, right? And we can only, or at least in the state assembly and the Senate, we can only change state law. We can't change federal law, but we need to do our part and say, you might do that over there, but in New York, we welcome our neighbors, and we don't treat people this way just because they came here seeking a better life. And it's not acceptable, and it's not humane to put people in jail based on their immigration status. So, So the Dignity Not Detention Act, it can be a heavy lift because unfortunately, not everyone feels this way. Not everybody understands how immigration enforcement works. We have a lot of education to do and hearts and minds to change, but this bill would really change people's lives and it would keep families together. So it's really important to us. Thanks, Sonia. Great. I won't talk at length about all of these because, again, I respect everyone's time. We had a lot of stuff going on. But I want to especially talk about good cause eviction. Yes, good cause eviction. This is a big deal. There we go. And some of the other things that were mentioned there, you don't have to go back, Sonia. It's okay. The state budget is a huge deal. It's legislation, it impacts all of our lives, and we spend most of the legislative session working on the state budget. And then after the budget passes, we're scrambling to pass all of this other non-budget legislation. But there always is so much that is won in the state budget every year. A lot of it is policy that's not even, really fiscal related, doesn't impact the state in that way, but it impacts all of our lives. And one of the things on the previous slide, again, you don't have to go back, it is we eliminated co-pays for insulin in New York State. Really big deal for people living with diabetes. It's wild that a drug like a medication like insulin that people depend on can be used to price gouge people and can be inaccessible to people when their lives depend on it. So that will not be the case in New York anymore. Good cause eviction. So the story about good cause is this is the first bill that I ever introduced as a new senator. It is what I have been most passionate about for the past 5.5, 6 years. The premise of this bill is that if you pay your rent and you abide by the terms of your lease, you should not be evicted for no reason. You should be able to defend yourself, and there should be a presumption that you can stay in your home. What a concept, right? And you shouldn't be, living in fear all the time that your lease simply won't be renewed and you'll have to leave for no reason, or your rent is going to be increased by an exorbitant amount. The cases that we hear from folks in the district, which, by the way, our district, 83% of people who live in the 18th are renters. So this affects a lot of us. Most of the constituent cases that we receive are folks saying, I just got my lease renewal from my landlord and my rent is increasing by 50%. Sometimes we see 200%, right? And people see that and they're like, that's ridiculous. There's no way. This can't be legal. And before we finally passed good cause eviction, when people would call us with those cases, we would say to them, it's horrendous, but actually it's totally legal for you. If you're not a tenant in regulated housing, this was always the case. It's something that I've experienced firsthand, have always paid my rent on time, but if my landlord thought that they could get more for the apartment, a lot more, then I was out of luck, right? It creates a lot of housing insecurity. We introduced this bill years ago, and we had to negotiate it in the state budget this year, every single year. And a lot of people here, not only, has this bill been extremely important to you, but it ultimately passed because of your advocacy. I'm seeing NYCC and Make the Road, CUF, so many people in our district, really. Yeah, actually give it up for you. It was a long fight, and the fight's not over, by the way. This was a very important moment in the state budget this year that through the budget, we finally created this good cause eviction law, but we had to negotiate it, and so the law that we ended up with is not exactly like the bill, to say the least, but it is, for tenants not only in our city and in our district, but across the state, it's a game changer, and it is going to protect a lot of people from unjustified rent increases and from being evicted for no good reason. So very, very proud that we were able to finally pass good cause. We had a good cause town hall last week, the week before, recently, at El Puente, where we really spoke at length about all of the details of it. It's a little bit complicated. Please call our office if you want to know more about good cause eviction, because I won't turn this into just a good cause town hall, but just want to recognize that while it is a partial victory, it absolutely is a victory that is going to make a profound impact in the lives of people across our district and across our state. And just to know if, so if you live in an apartment or a rental unit, apartment or a home for that matter, and your landlord owns more than 10 units in the state of New York, and you meet other conditions that you probably meet if you live in our district, but find out, talk to us. It is presumed unlawful for your landlord this year to raise your rent by more than 8.8%. So if you receive a lease renewal, and it's a big rent increase, find out if it's lawful. Please feel free to call our office, talk to somebody who knows more about good cause eviction. Talk to me personally. I'm obsessed with this bill. It was my baby for years. And also, if your landlord just says, I'm not renewing your lease at all, get out, and they don't have any justification, call us. Because before April, we might not have been able to really help, or at least legally your landlord could do that. Now that's probably not the case anymore. So that's a really big deal, and I'm really grateful for everybody who made that happen. Quickly, some local budget wins. We talked about basement apartment conversion and legalization. Another imperfect victory. I'm not king. I work with lots of other people in Albany, and sometimes we don't get everything that we want, and we just have to keep fighting. Increased enforcement for unlicensed cannabis shops. It was really important that we legalized adult use cannabis years ago now, I think, 2021? It all runs together. However, it's regulated, and it needs to be properly regulated, and we have to protect people from illegal and unsafe products, and people from operating when they shouldn't be. I think many of us have seen, I've talked to you about it, unlicensed cannabis shops around the district. We needed to take action in the state budget to allow localities, including here in New York City, to really have teeth with enforcement. Still working that out, even though it's been months since the budget passed, because you may see, I was talking to folks near Cooper today, that there's an unlicensed illegal cannabis shop over there. It's basically a bodega, but they're selling weed, probably among other things. And the shop was padlocked. The sheriff used the power that we gave them in the state budget to close that shop. It was open again by the next day. I don't know why that's happening. We're on top of it. We're talking to OCM and we're talking to local law enforcement to make sure that doesn't continue to be the case, because it shouldn't be after we, took these steps to empower, to give localities power in the state budget. Foundation aid school funding preserved. Foundation aid was threatened for schools across the state to be pretty severely cut. We fought back. Ultimately, we are actually seeing almost $1 billion more go to public schools in New York State after this state budget. So obviously that's a big accomplishment. Next. My part of this is, we'll get to Q&A, we're almost there. Capital funds. It's a lot to go over, but the organizations and entities that you see here are all serving people in our district, doing amazing work, and all of them in the past year year to 2 years have received capital funding grants from the state through our office in order to support their work, to build spaces for people, to make repairs, to build an elevator to make their space more accessible, for example, and to continue their meaningful work. Program funding, different from building things and making repairs. It's funding that has fewer guardrails, I'll say, and it's easier to use this funding to support organizations that are doing work like providing legal services to folks who need it free of charge to them, providing housing support, affordable, sometimes directly providing affordable housing, funding the work that the WIC does. That's really important to me every year, doing really important public safety work in the community, and organizing people who are credible messengers to our community, and working particularly with young people on that. I could go on, but check out every one of these organizations. Guns for Grants, actually both program and capital funding. I know you're here, Rashid. You're here somewhere. Maybe not. There you are. Yes, right there in the middle. So anyway, really happy to see some of you here who do this work, and grateful that we have been able to allocate funding to support you. I'm sweating. I usually run cold, but you know, it's 100 degrees outside. Cool, so we have some upcoming events. All the info is here because it is officially August today. We have some back to school events coming up. That's 3 of them here. This is just a sample of events going on in the next few weeks. There are so many events that we are hosting or collaborating with our partners on in the district. Scan this QR code when you can. We can also give you more information after this presentation before you leave about upcoming events. Just follow us on social media as well so that you can stay up to date with everything that our office is doing. Cool. Q&A. Thank you all. More water. So I received some questions in advance. I'll also, let me do a time check. What time is it? 6 o'clock? How much time do I have for Q&A? 10 to 15 minutes. Okay. So as a preface to that, because we have like 10 to 15 minutes, if I don't get to your question, I will. Just probably not, during this portion, because I'll, we've got other stuff on the agenda. Folks who are going to talk to you about resources. If I don't get to it, I will answer your question. Could be after the town hall, but by tomorrow, I'll be able to get to your question and talk to you about it. One of the first question I received, and actually this is a question that 2 or 3 constituents asked when they RSVP'd, was what kind of help or resources can you provide, can my office provide to parents whose children have autism? This is a great question. I will say that it's sort of personal for me. I grew up with a sibling who is on the autism spectrum, and actually back then, it wasn't that long ago, but decades ago, right, like 25 years ago, people did not know as much as they know now about autism and autism spectrum disorder. It was a lot harder for children and families who were dealing with this. There was a lot of mystery around it, not a lot of information to the layperson about what to do. Today, that's not really the case. I know that an ASD or autism diagnosis can still be scary and give people uncertainty and not know what to do. But the good news is that there is so much more information and support today than there was back then and when I was growing up. The answer to this question really depends on a family's specific needs. So if you ask this, please talk to me every person's case is different. Everyone's needs are different, and we want to support you. And we want to know what resources you're already accessing. Where are you on this journey of addressing this and supporting your kid or your family member? Is the kid of school age? Are they enrolled in a DOE public school, or are they enrolled in an independent or private school? Do they already have what's known as an IEP, an individualized education program? These are things that can really set up a child with any disability, but including a child on the autism spectrum for success and be able to thrive and perform well in school. And if you're looking for social resources like support groups for families with children on the autism spectrum, we can connect you to those as well. And thinking about Include NYC, which again is not exclusively for children and families with an autism diagnosis, but also with other disabilities, the Autism Innovation Network, and more. So please follow up with me if you want to learn more about that. We want to support you, and it means a lot to me. Someone else asked me about offshore wind and congestion pricing. Two separate things, but this person asked about both of them, and that's cool. So offshore wind, I think about this the way that I think about other sources of renewable energy. We need it. We need to, as a state, we need to invest in it and support it. When we talk about expanding renewable energy generation, we're also talking about creating more jobs. And in my opinion, those should be union jobs. We have passed legislation in the past, well, last year, we passed something called the Build Public Renewables Act, a bill that I was the co-prime sponsor of, that mandates that, or rather directs, the New York Power Authority, which is the largest public entity, power producer in the United States, actually, to scale up and build more renewable energy and increase renewable energy generation for our state. Our planet depends on it. All of us, our future depends on transitioning away from fossil fuels and to clean, renewable sources of energy. And offshore wind in New York State is actually one way of doing that. So I do support it. Congestion pricing. Congestion pricing. I fully support congestion pricing. That's an understatement, actually. So in 2019, when the state budget included a vote on authorizing congestion pricing for the first time in New York, I voted in support of it very enthusiastically. It's wild that that was back in 2019, and we still don't have congestion pricing in New York City's central business district. There's a lot of misinformation out there about what congestion pricing is and why we need it. We need it because right now, too many people are driving into, and they don't all need to, in fact, most don't need to, are driving into the central business district or, this part of Midtown Manhattan. The vast majority of New Yorkers, this is a fact, and I'm telling you, more than 96% of New Yorkers do not commute to work in the central business district. In our district, it's even higher than that. So it's like less than 4% of people across the outer boroughs are commuting into Manhattan for work. It's even lower than that in our district. It's more like 1%. And that's a choice, especially in our district where, fortunately, trust me, I don't own a vehicle. I have a license, but I don't drive. I rely on public transit to get around, okay? I know that sometimes, I'm cursing the MTA too. Today I was, on my way here. So I know the feeling. That's actually why congestion pricing is so important. The MTA's congestion pricing plan is TBD, was to generate more than $15 billion in investments for public transit in New York City and in the MTA region, so even beyond New York City. That is all threatened right now because the governor decided to indefinitely pause the congestion pricing plan, which was supposed to be implemented starting in June, this June. There's a legal fight over this. 2 lawsuits were just filed. I agree with the premise of these lawsuits. One is that we have to meet our climate goals, and we're not going to do that if we don't get some people who are, do not have to drive and don't have to rely on cars out of their cars and, using other clean modes of transportation. If we don't do that, we're going to continue to see really high carbon emissions in our city, and it's poisoning our communities, and it's destroying our planet. So we have to address that. There's also too much traffic congestion, and that's why actually a lot of the support for congestion pricing comes from people who live in Manhattan, whether they live inside or outside the zone. So all of that to say, yes, I support congestion pricing, and I could talk about it forever. It's another question someone has for me. What is being done at the state level to support workforce development? I'm going to combine this with another relevant question. Somebody asked me if I support Youth Build. Youth Build is a program, it's been around, I think, for decades now, long time. Some folks here, I think there are some folks from St. Nick's Alliance here. I know that they work with Youth Build. This is a workforce development program for young people, right? Pretty self-explanatory. It's really important. There's legislation to codify the Youth Build program, essentially, at the state level. Senator Bailey carries it, and I fully support it. I was really happy to meet with the young people who are participating in the program when they came to Albany. Workforce development, more generally, we invest in this every year in the state budget. Some of the transitions and changes that we're talking about in industry, in our local economies, change can be scary, but it also can be a workforce development opportunity, and mean the creation of more jobs and training people to do those jobs, good, clean, well-paying, stable union jobs. So yes, workforce development is really important to me, and I think the state has a very important role to play. Do a real quick time check. Jess? What time is it? 6:12. Okay. I'm going to do one more question. I'm sorry that I can't take more questions right now, but again, if you have a question, it will be answered. Please provide information on 485X and how it might impact the district. How many of you, quick raise of hands, have heard of a program called 421A? Of course you have. So actually, this is a city program, or at least it just applies in New York City, that was created years ago, was supposed to incentivize the creation of affordable housing by giving a tax break to developers to build and maintain affordable housing. What it had been in practice is a program that I couldn't support, and that there wasn't sufficient oversight or accountability in this program. A lot of buildings and housing, new housing in Williamsburg and Bushwick were built through the 421A program. Unfortunately, a lot of tenants, families were defrauded of affordable housing because while developers, not everybody, but too many, were taking this tax break, not paying property taxes for decades, by the way, and in exchange they were supposed to provide and maintain affordable housing, and they weren't doing that. So that was a problem. We allowed the 421A tax abatement to expire about 2 years ago, year and a half ago, and then began negotiating a new a replacement essentially for 421A. It was part of this grand housing deal in the state budget that included good cause eviction and other things related to housing and housing justice. We replaced it with something called 45X. There are some important differences. I think it is a major improvement on the 421A program. I remain skeptical and very critical of tax abatements and tax breaks for developers who are not building 100% affordable housing. However, I do think that it improves very significantly on 421A. The most important thing to know is that housing built through the 45X program is permanently affordable. So the old program, affordability would expire after a certain time, and then if you lived in it, too bad, your apartment's not affordable anymore, you're not rent stabilized anymore. That's not the case with affordable units that are built through the 485X program. The labor terms for the workers actually building this housing and working in 485X properties are much stronger than 421A, and we worked with organized labor to make sure that was the case. So I think those are the really important things to know about 485X, but you may have other questions about it. I know we're out of time for questions, but I would love to talk about it more at length for anybody who is impacted by it in any way, whether you are a resident of the district who's looking for affordable housing, or you just care about these issues and you care about land use, or you are someone who truly wants to build affordable housing. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you. I'll take these and follow up.
Good evening, everyone. Are we all happy to be here? That's right. Let's give a great round of applause to the great senator from the great 18th district.
I do really quickly want to recognize and shout out my staff who are here. I even see a former staffer here. I'm looking at you, Paul. Thanks for Paul left our office to go to law school, and we're very, very proud of him. But Andrew Block, hello, just doing it on my line of sight. Emily, Sonia, Jessica next to me, Isabella's here, making things happen in the back. There you are, Julia Fetter, also here. Other folks. Maria, where are you? There you are, also in the back, I'm sorry. So I have an amazing team. It would be completely impossible for me to do this work without them. I'm extremely grateful for them, and they are also a resource to you. So thank you all for making this happen.
And we love doing our job. It's really, really great to be part of this amazing community and serve you. And it's also really easy when you have a boss like State Senator Salazar. So it goes hand in hand. So as Senator Salazar just introduced me, I'm Jessica Franco, District Director for State Senator Salazar, and it is a pleasure to be here. I am going to quickly call on our partners, the community organizations that are tabling, and I'm going to call them in this order so they can briefly take 2 minutes to speak on the services that they provide. New York Live On, Senix Alliance, CORE, CCRB, Make the Road, El Puente, and Safe Horizon. Please make your way to me so that we can give you the mic for 2 minutes. Please give a warm round of applause to Live On New York.
Hello, everyone. How are you? First, thank you, Senator Salazar, for all of the amazing work that you're doing in Albany. Thank you so much for advocating for us. We appreciate you. Thank you. But I'm Shani Aldain. I'm here on behalf of Live On New York. We facilitate organ tissue donation for about 70% of New York State. Now, I know when everyone hears organ donation, they get a little squeamish because nobody really likes to talk about death, but there is death on one end, and then there is life and beauty on the other end of it. Organ donation truly does change and save lives. I have some information out at the table. If anyone is in, I met two great guys when they came in. Hey! We had a great conversation about it, but if anyone is interested in getting some information about organ donation, how you could potentially save a life one day, long time from now when you don't need your tissue and organs anymore, please stop at the table. We are also going to be hosting a gospel concert on August 14th at New Life Cathedral. That's actually not in the district. However, Senator Salazar does support East New York a little bit. A little bit of East New York. But definitely, if anyone is interested in getting information about that, please let me know. But thank you again. Thank you, everyone.
And we support East New York a lot. I'm just saying. Let's give a round of applause to Live On New York, please. And let's give a warm welcome to the Office of the Community Liaison. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you all for taking time to be here. So my office is pretty new, but how many of you have heard of Stop and Frisk with NYPD policing? So this neighborhood is one of the neighborhoods that is highly policed, along with many other neighborhoods nearby like Bed-Stuy and Crown Heights. What my office does is help with accountability for NYPD by getting feedback from New Yorkers who are being policed, particularly Black and brown folks who are targeted from the policy of stop, question, and frisk. Many of you in this room know about stop and frisk when it was at its peak, right, in the 90s and 2000s. Right now, we see the numbers dramatically increasing again, and that's concerning. All of us who live in this neighborhood and nearby in other areas in Brooklyn see a lot of our youth is targeted by stop and frisk, right? Folks who are 18 to 24, mostly Black and brown young men. So we want to make sure that we're collecting feedback to give community input on how stop and frisk is actually happening, and we're not only seeing data from the NYPD themselves. So my office is working directly under the judge that's overseeing the stop and frisk lawsuit to give feedback from you folks about what's happening on a day-to-day basis, so that we have community voices and your stories, as well as the data. And we work alongside the federal monitor, so I'm not sure if you know about them, very important. They look at body camera footage and they look at police reports. So us as a team is helping to make sure we give the proper information about what's happening in our neighborhoods, and you as a community can have feedback on how you want to be policed as well. So I'll have a table in the front when you come out. You can get some information from me. If you have any spaces where you want to learn about your rights during stop and frisk and what to expect, we can come and do an info session. And if you want to give us feedback, it's anonymous, you'll be safe, but we want to make sure we're using our voices to have power in our community. So thank you.
Thank you so much to the Office of the Community Liaison. Now let's give a warm welcome to Make the Road.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Plácida Rodríguez, voy a hablar en español porque esa es mi lengua materna. Estoy trabajando con la organización Se Hace Camino, Nueva York, por muchos años aquí en la comunidad de Bushwick. En nuestra organización apoyamos a las familias con lo que es diferentes servicios, en términos de servicios de salud, para aplicar para los beneficios, para SNAP, para apoyo para desalojo. Tenemos varias diferentes apoyos que ofrecemos a la comunidad, pero mi enfoque es trabajar con las escuelas públicas aquí, empoderar a los padres, luchar en la comunidad para mejorar las escuelas, pero también como la senadora Julia Salazar, también abogar para traer más fondos para las escuelas públicas, las bibliotecas y los programas después de la escuela. No quiero tomar mucho tiempo, pero quiero anunciar, nosotros todos los años tenemos un evento que se llama De Regreso a la Escuela, y vamos a tener ese evento ahora el 17 de agosto, y estamos invitando a toda la comunidad a participar. Las organizaciones que están aquí están invitadas a venir a poner una mesa también y a promover los servicios y los recursos que hay en la comunidad. Así que gracias a todos por darme la oportunidad, por participar esta noche, y seguimos adelante. La lucha del pueblo, y con la lucha del pueblo nadie se cansa.
I'm just going to quickly, briefly translate. So her name is Placida. She works for Make the Roads, and they offer services for the community, such as health, SNAP, eviction support. She focuses on empowering parents and supporting our schools, and they are working on a back-to-school event. And so if you want to connect with her, if you want a table at the event, and community first, and that's how we move forward. Now I would like to introduce you to Maria Rubio.
Soy muy chiquita. Buenas noches, mi nombre es María Rubio. 2018. Todavía recuerdo cuando una jovencita llegó a nuestras oficinas de Make the Road Action. No hablaba mucho, era calladita. Y estaba ahí como líder de Make the Road Action, y hoy, 6 años después, no me arrepiento de haberte dado el endorso. Me siento muy orgullosa de todas las cosas que hemos logrado, de todas las campañas y proyectos que hemos logrado juntos en todos estos años. Yo estoy aquí ahora representando a Make the Road New York, represento al equipo de salud. Y todo lo que dijo Plácida anteriormente, el equipo de salud de Make the Road New York es un equipo que nos hemos proyectado a ayudar a la comunidad, tanto inmigrante como la que ya está aquí, dando todos los recursos de salud. Damos el Medicaid de emergencia, damos el NYC Care, ayudamos con los biles médicos cuando alguien tiene deudas médicas, ayudamos al Food Pantry, SNAP todos los viernes en las oficinas de Grow, de 7 a 12 del mediodía. En Queen tenemos los miércoles donde ayudamos a nuestra comunidad. También tenemos muchos proyectos o entrenamientos, ¿verdad?, que hace posible que la comunidad vaya mejorando para mejorar en sus trabajos, como tenemos el entrenamiento que es muy bueno, que es para las trabajadoras de salud comunitarias. Ese entrenamiento es totalmente gratis. Tenemos clases de computación gratis, clases de inglés gratis, clases de ciudadanía gratis. La palabra mágica es aquí, gratis. Todo es gratis, no cobramos por nada. Make the Road se proyecta para todas las comunidades, tanto la comunidad latina como la comunidad inmigrante que está llegando, como la comunidad afroamericana. Nosotros llegamos a todas las comunidades, estamos en todos los sitios porque tenemos 4 oficinas en este borough, ¿verdad? En lo que es Nueva York, tenemos en Connecticut, Pensilvania, New Jersey, en Las Vegas. Por si necesitan, estamos allá también y estamos para servirle. Lo que tienen que recordar siempre es que estamos aquí, somos una comunidad, tenemos que estar unidos porque solo así seremos invencibles. Y yo siempre termino con una frase que me encanta, que sí se puede. Sí se puede, mi gente. Sí se puede, se puede, sí se puede. Gracias.
All right, so I'm going to quickly translate. That was a lot, but let's try to go for it. So 2018, she remembers when she first met a sweet, quiet young lady who came into the office. She is so proud of all the work that Senator Salazar has done and that she has done together with Make the Road. Make the Road focuses on supporting the community in health, applying for Medicaid, food stamps. They also have a food pantry. They focus on empowering the community by developing workshops. They offer computer classes. They offer in general work wages classes, and everything is free. So the key word here is free. And she is here to serve, Make the Road is here to serve the community. They are in New York, Pennsylvania, Vegas. They have 4 locations and they're here to help community. And she always wants to end with the phrase, yes, we can. Now I want to give it up to Venus from CCRB. Please give her a warm welcome.
I just want to take the time to thank the state senator and her office for always supporting our agency. I see a lot of familiar, friendly faces, so it was great to be here. My name is Venus Canterbury. I'm Brooklyn Outreach for the New York City Civilian Complaint Review Board, aka CCRB. Essentially, we are a city agency that independently investigates, mediates, and at times administratively prosecute allegations of police misconduct. So like our neighbor colleague, the Office of Community Liaison, we work on making sure that we're holding police officers that do conduct wrong in our communities accountable. So our jurisdiction is force, abuse of authority, discourtesy, and offensive language. And we also investigate racial profiling / bias-based policing and sexual misconduct. There's many ways to file. The most common way is to file online, or you can call our hotline or 311. We have some information in the back. And lastly, we do Know Your Rights workshops that educate folks on their rights and responsibilities during police street encounters. We go over de-escalation. We also go over how to file. So if there's any partnering organizations that would benefit from a Know Your Rights workshop, especially for the youth, I'll be more than happy to facilitate that. And any type of tabling events, we're down to make sure that we are spreading out this information and making sure that folks know that you don't have to go to the precinct necessarily if you experience police misconduct. There's an independent body that will investigate that and make sure that we are holding police officers accountable. So I'm Venus, CCRB, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for that, Venus. Let's give a warm welcome to Sen. Nix, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Beatrice Brown. I'm from St. Nick's Alliance Workforce Development. We located at 790 Broadway, and we offer, like Senator Julia Salazar stated earlier, the Youth Build Program. We work with individuals between the ages of 16 through 24 years old and adult, 21 and over. We offer different type of training programs, skills training on the construction, environmental remediation, financial service training program. We have also the educational department, high school equivalence, English as a second language, which is the GED, high school equivalence, and also we assist individuals in finding employment. We have an info section every day. If you're interested, please come in. I have flyers in the back. Our programs are totally free. We serve over 1,700 individuals, and we are happy to work with the community. I grew up in this community, so I'm happy to give back. Thank you, Ms. Salazar.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. Let's give a warm welcome to CORE.
Hi everyone, my name is Robbie. I'm here on behalf of Communities Resist. Communities Resist is a legal services organization that offers free legal services for tenants all across Brooklyn and all across Queens. Our organization is very unique in comparison to other legal service organizations where we have a group model and we represent tenant associations. So if you're interested in organizing your building and you are interested in organizing with other tenants in your building, please reach out. Our organization is located at 312 Broadway off of Marcy Avenue on the JMM. And want to do a little plug. We also are working with Senator Salazar's office. We have a legal clinic where we offer free legal advice to the community here. Our next event is on this upcoming Monday from 11 to 2. So if you want to stop by and have a legal question, I will be there and can offer free legal information and advice. Our organization is also very passionate about protecting Black and brown communities from gentrification and displacement. And we have seen a pattern where landlords will intentionally not make repairs for conditions, and that will force communities that have been in these communities for so long, in these neighborhoods for so long, and force them out and be displaced. And we specifically represent tenants and sue landlords on behalf of these tenant organizations and associations to essentially force landlords to make repairs and in cases of harassment. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Let's give a warm welcome to Safe Horizon.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Michelle. I am the domestic violence advocate at the 81st Precinct here in Bed-Stuy. This is my partner, Aaron.
Hey guys, I'm the CV&D crime victim and domestic violence advocate at the 76th Precinct in Carroll Gardens.
So we are from Safe Horizon. Safe Horizon is a not-for-profit that works for the community. We partner with the NYPD. We are essentially advocates for crime victims and domestic violence victims. So we essentially serve as middleman between you guys and the NYPD for your cases. We reach out to victims of crimes and see how we can provide them services and support. We do a range of things. We also work with victims of sex trafficking. We also offer immigration services, things of that sort. So we are in most precincts as well. You know, we understand that everybody's comfortable with police officers or talking to them. You know, they don't always listen to us, but that's what we're here for. We advocate on your behalf so that you guys can seek justice.
Thank you very much for that. And I don't know if our district manager, Celeste, would like to say a few words. Yeah, and right after that, we'll give a warm welcome to El Puente.
Thank you so much, Jessica. This was unexpected. Otherwise, I would have been over here. But I just want to say hello to everyone and thank you all. On behalf of myself and Mr. Camacho and the community board, right now the board is on recess, July and August. We will be back September 18th is our first full board meeting. We hope to see everyone. We know there's a lot going on in Bushwick. I also just want to let everyone know we have a lot of turnover on the board. And in 2027, all of the board members that have been serving, some for decades like Mr. Camacho, will no longer be able to remain board members due to term limits. So we're going to be looking to you all, to folks in this community, to fill those seats and to become part of this conversation. We need Bushwick to be represented by Bushwick. Thank you all.
Thank you very much for that. And without any more waiting, let's give a warm welcome to Jasmine from El Puente.
Hi, thank you everyone for having us, first of all. Thank you for always inviting us to this, and thank you for hanging out at our headquarters for the Good Cause Town Hall. So, hi, my name is Jasmine. I'm the director of the El Puente Bushwick Center here in Bushwick. However, there are other centers located in Williamsburg. We are a human rights social justice organization that our goal is to nurture leaders for peace and justice, specifically with the youth. We provide a safe space for them to come and just explore, work through whatever it is they're working through. And we use the arts specifically to move that forward. We know that that's the best way to give youth voices. We know they already have their voice, they already have thoughts, we just give them the way to express it. But because youth are not raised individually in a vacuum, we also provide services for all of the families, since we do know that, it takes a village. So we are always providing different things. We host different work permit fairs for immigrants. We host, sometimes we do back to school days. We come to different events as well. We like to show up everywhere and make sure that we're here and we're seen and that we're here for whatever it is that you need. So to show you how great our dancers are and how we use music and how we use that, I have brought some of our break dancers and some of our hip hop dancers are going to be here to perform for you. So I hope you really enjoy that.